Remember when I went to Paris a couple of weeks ago? The most interesting thing to me was when I went into Muslim neighborhoods and asked young men what they thought of the terrorist attacks. About half the Muslims I spoke with blamed the Jews.
Juif a fait ça?
Peut-être les juifs, mais les musulmans, non. Pour moi, t'es raciste, les juifs.
These were not radical Muslims, at least they didn't seem to be. They weren't wearing long beards or beards at all. They didn't have head coverings. They were dressed in modern Western clothes. They weren't in mosques or madrasas. They were just hanging out on the street. That was what was so scary about them. These were the moderates. 10% of France is Muslim now. I thought the president of France said his country is at war and dispatched an aircraft carrier to Syria, but really, isn't the threat coming from within France itself? I'm not saying these particular young people who said Muslims didn't do the terrorist attacks, Jews did it. I'm not saying these young men are terrorists, but they're clearly extremists. They're not French or liberal or secular or egalitarian in their thinking. France is lost, I thought. Remember when I was there, I went to the Kosher supermarket that a Muslim terrorist attacked back in January and murdered 4 people there. It was still operating. It had a couple of armed cops out front. They wouldn't let me film inside, makes sense. But one of my thoughts was, if you are a Jew in France, you should probably start making plans to leave. I mean, is it really going to get any better in the future? Do you really think they'll ever be able to remove those cops from outside that Kosher supermarket? I mean, they probably will remove them one day for financial reasons or, I don't know, political reasons, but the terrorist attacks are only going to continue. Do you doubt it? But look at this. Let me show you a few quick things. After the terrorist attacks, the French ambassador to the United States, Gérard Araud, wrote a letter to French expats in America saying, and I quote, "Yesterday, journalists and Jews. Now, ordinary citizens whose only crime was to enjoy life on a Friday night in Paris." That's weird, eh? Yesterday it was Jews. This time it's ordinary citizens, not Jews. I guess they're not ordinary citizens. That's a little bit weird, that language. But it's no weirder than what John Kerry, the US Secretary of State, said. He actually said the terrorist attack against the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo in January and that Jewish supermarket had a legitimacy to them. He quickly revised his word to a rationale, but really the meaning is similar. And more to the point, you saw how he thought. Here, take a look.
There's something different about what happened from Charlie Hebdo, and I think everybody would feel that. There was a sort of particularized focus and perhaps even a legitimacy in terms of, not a legitimacy, but a rationale that you could attach yourself to somehow and say, okay, they're really angry because of this or that.
So yeah, John Kerry said it. Attacking Jews makes sense. Attacking journalists who criticize Islam makes sense. But even about that rationale, that rational attack on Jews back in January, remember what Barack Obama himself said back then? Remember this?
It is entirely legitimate for the American people to be deeply concerned when you've got a bunch of violent, vicious zealots who behead people or randomly shoot a bunch of folks in a deli in Paris.
Randomly at some random deli. No, it was a Jewish kosher supermarket. No one else goes there. It is hard to find. You don't just show up there. You go there on purpose. It is marked Jewish all over the place. Its official name is hyper kosher. But Obama just said it was a random attack. Oh, and here's CNN picking up the theme.
It wasn't that a person was picked out because of their faith. It wasn't because a person was picked out because of their job, such as Charlie Hebdo. This was just people, any kind of person. And that has really shaken the people of Paris.
Look, France is lost. I really don't know how they can unscramble the omelet they've made. 10% of their population is Muslim. Depending on which poll you look at, up to a quarter of French young people actually support the Islamic State terrorist group. And the leaders of the West, the French ambassador, John Kerry, Barack Obama, CNN, of course, they're all slowly normalizing things, conditioning us to it. Look, if it was black churches being firebombed in the South by the Ku Klux Klan, I'm not quite sure if John Kerry and CNN and ambassadors would be saying there's a rationale to it. I'm not sure if Obama would be saying it was random. But that's how they're conditioning us to accept Muslim terrorism overseas, even as we're inviting to Canada and the US tens of thousands of migrant Muslim men as refugees. Yeah, this problem, it's going to get worse before it gets better. For the Rebel.media, I'm Ezra Levant.